Hey guys, Joe here. And quick question for you, different angle today, but quick question for you. Did you enjoy the video for the computer bringing it back from the dead? I hope you did, but I also hope that you aren't telling me that I shouldn't do anything to it, because I did something to it. Here's what happened. I finished the computer, I made the video, I wanted to make some improvements to it, so I started looking at options, RAM, doing all kinds of other stuff to it, and I went over to my father's house to pick up a couple of parts, and it turns out he was still using the 460 graphics card until he says he's going to put a Radeon 480 in it. He's an AMD guy, and I just kind of took a couple of things. As I was leaving, my father said, hey, do you want this old motherboard? It's got a processor on it. If the processor's any good, you may be able to use it in something. And it was his old i7. The reason why it was no longer installed in his computer, and I've talked about this before, is the fact that a hairdryer got plugged into the power strip. And technically, it was a power supply, but for some reason, it didn't trip the power supply, and it allowed too much voltage to go through it, and it kind of fried a couple of things. Now, we thought that the processor was completely fried, or at least the motherboard was completely fried, but the first thing that led us to thinking that maybe there was something okay with it was the fact that the RAM chips worked on the other board, and some of the other parts worked on the other board. However, it did fry the hard drive, so it did overvolt a bit. But luckily, the computer was the only thing that died. Well, I said I'll take it, because a guy I bought some RAM from, he's a small computer shop. I figured he would have like a board laying around that we could test the processor with, and if the processor worked, then, you know, I could either get another board or sell the processor or something, because it's an i7 2600. It's not a K, it's not overclockable, the motherboard wasn't overclockable, but still not a bad performing motherboard. And the computer was pretty decent when it was working. So I took it, and I was going to take it to him tomorrow, but I decided to monkey with it because it was like 12:30 at night. I was watching some Linus Tech Tips, and I learned a lot just from watching his videos. I know how to build computers. I know how to diagnose computers. I know how to diagnose things because I've been dealing with electrical components in cars, rebuilding electrical systems, completely rewiring them. So I'm not unfamiliar with electronics, but I've never dedicated more than like 5 minutes to doing something, upgrading a video card, throwing in the SSD, stuff like that. But I figured, why don't I try making the good old pre-installation posting attempt? That's where you take the motherboard, you set it on top of the box it comes in, you hook up the power supply and a video cable or card. I just hooked it up to the onboard video and one RAM stick, and I turned it on. And lo and behold, the thing worked. It actually turned on. It posted to the BIOS. I went into the BIOS. It saw the RAM stick, saw the processor, and it was seeing it at the right frequency. So I was like, well, maybe I should try doing something a little bit different. So here's what I did. For the record, that's Captain Asus behind you. And don't look behind you, you won't see anything. This, from now on, will be known as Mr. Be Cool. This is the new layout of this computer, and I'm going to show you a couple of things, and maybe it'll help you understand what was wrong with this board. This is a Gigabyte board. It's an 1155 socket. And it's got, again, the i7 2600. It's a good processor. It does well. It's a quad-core, 8-thread processor. And right now it's got two 4-gig sticks in it. These were actually the upgrade sticks that I was putting in it from another system. As you can see, I only have 2 in it, even though it has 4 slots. The reason for that is these 2 slots are bad. Not sure what happened, but these 2 are definitely bad. When I add 2 more RAM chips, it does not post. It will refuse to post. It won't even boot up. As you can see, I've cable managed it pretty well. Basically, almost don't see any cables up top. The only cables you really see are the 4-pin connector going to the CPU, and the only reason why that isn't tighter is because of reasons I don't know. Let me tighten that up right now. All I had to do was put some new Arctic Silver on the CPU in order to replace the cooler, because I had taken that off to remove the CPU to see if the CPU was burnt, and that's good to go. The other thing is down here. As you can see, these are the cables that go to the front USB connectors. Well, number one, on this computer they don't work anyways, but number two, I'm pretty sure that port, I guess I'll call it, is bad, because if I have anything plugged into there, the system will not post. So between this and the bad RAM slots, those were the two reasons why my father thought that the system was completely dead. Luckily it isn't. Now, it doesn't matter to me because, number one, 8 gigs is plenty for just a cheap system to run older games. And number two is because I don't care about using the front USBs, because this board actually had plenty of I/O stuff, you know, 3.0 USBs, other USB slots. So it's got plenty of stuff already built into it. I did reuse the 450 card for now. I would like to put the 460 in there, but again, my father's still using it. He's going to give that back to me as soon as he can, at which point I will install it down there and run it as 2 video cards. This optical drive is no longer usable in this system. I'm just leaving it in there so it fills in the hole, because it uses the old school connector that, as you can see, this motherboard does not support. So yeah, I'll have to get a different drive or just do everything digitally, which will be difficult since I have no intention on putting this computer on the internet at all. The other thing I found out is that this case does have a front fan. However, there is no second fan connector on this board, so I would have to get a fan controller for it. And that's money I don't feel like spending. Yeah, I think I cable managed it pretty well. Everything's pretty much put together. I did have to cut a cable tie that I had holding these together because they weren't installed correctly. But now that I have them corrected, maybe I'll sleeve it or re-zip tie those. Yeah, I think that's a pretty clean install. Let me know what you think down in the comments. You know, I figure I'll zip tie these cables right there. Actually, yeah, I'll do that right now. So as you can see, it's booting up. Ultra durable. I guess so. It took way too much voltage and it still works. One thing I'm noticing is that this system is much quieter than the Phenom system was. That fan is so loud on that Phenom, and it was running, well, I'm not going to say it was running hot, but it definitely was using the fan a lot more than this setup is. Now, I've already run Cinebench and OpenGL on it, but we'll do it again just so that we can have it for you. And I do have to actually log on with this computer, although I have to hook it up with an Ethernet cable, because by installing the new motherboard, and the only thing I saved was the hard drive, for some reason now it doesn't think that this version of Windows 7 is genuine. So I do have to log on and go ahead and change that. But I'm going to go ahead and kill a couple of the processes so that the processor isn't taxed at all and it has the best possible chance of running the exact same numbers. Okay, as you can see, processor basically is using nothing. It's bouncing every now and then because it's probably still booting up. But let's load up Cinebench and we'll see what happens. Thank you for your patience. Somebody will be with you as soon as possible. Don't know how well you can see it, but I actually ran this test twice, and this is the one that I saved at 3.4 gigahertz, 2600 CPU, ran a 621. Now a 3770 beat it quite a bit, but that's a 3770. So let's go ahead and start with OpenGL. Oh, check it out. I actually made a better score than I have on any other point so far. So I got 66.71 frames per second, which beat the old one by just a little bit when it was running at 3.2 gigahertz. So let's see what happens with the actual CPU test now. And for a free system, I think it does pretty well. For reference, the best I ever got out of the Phenom was a 500 I got 505 once, but it was completely unstable. As soon as I started the OpenGL, it crashed the system. As you can see, I got 623, which is slightly better than the first run I did, which was at 621. So I'm very happy because the highest I got recorded that I could save was 500 with the Phenom. And I could overclock it to 4 gigs and it probably would never come close to that. But of course that's okay. I'm not expecting it to be that great. What's the conclusion? Well, yes, I built the computer. Yes, I made a video of it. And yes, I changed it 2 days after I got it done. But as you can see, I changed it for the better. There's nothing wrong with changing your setup frequently, especially when you're getting better stuff for free or very little money. And I just wanted to do this to show that Mr. Be Cool actually is not a terrible computer, especially now. I have to log on and reactivate this copy of Windows. However, the other thing I think I'm going to do is, because of the way Windows 10 stores its keys and stuff, since this motherboard is still good, I should be able to upgrade this system to Windows 10 with no problems. I shouldn't have to buy the operating system. So, yeah, I guess we'll see what happens, eh? If you have any comments, leave them down below. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you'd like to subscribe, I'd love to have you. Go ahead and find my big old noggin in the corner here. And if you'd like to see something else, I'll put them up on this side as well. Not sure what I'm going to put up there. I just kind of randomly pick stuff. It'll be something related. Maybe it'll be when Captain Asus took a crap or something. I'll figure it out. And, as always, I'll talk to you later.